Friends, neighbors, fellow Americans, let's be honest, we've all been there, standing in our homes, staring down a menacing household repair. Do we call a professional? Never. We are self-sufficient Americans with a toolbox full of, well, maybe not a full toolbox, but we have a junk drawer, and that's practically the same thing. This, my friends, is a tale of those moments. Those glorious attempts to fix what's broken using nothing but grit, determination, and whatever random objects are within arm's reach. Will it work? Probably not. Will it be funny? Oh, you bet your bottom dollar it will. Let's begin, shall we? Our first contestant in this festival of futility? A wobbly chair that seemed to have a mind of its own. A wobbly chair with delusions of grandeur, thinking it could stand tall despite its obvious flaws. Or perhaps it was me with the delusions, believing that a sturdy kitchen spoon could magically transform into a carpenter's chisel. I mean, how hard could it be, right? The plan was simple. Shove the spoon under the offending leg, whack it with my boot, and watch in awe as the chair magically stabilized itself. It seemed like a foolproof plan at the time. Spoiler alert, magic was not involved. The chair remained as wobbly as ever. The spoon, bless its little silver heart, tried its best. It really did. It wedged itself in. It bore the brunt of my enthusiastic stomping. I gave it my all, but the spoon was no match for the stubborn chair. But alas, it was not meant to be. The chair remained defiant. The result? A slightly dented spoon, a chair leg that now resembled modern art, and a valuable lesson learned. Sometimes, improvisation just doesn't cut it. Sometimes, you just need the right tool for the job. A proper tool can make all the difference, or at least a tool that remotely resembles the right tool. Lesson learned. Always be prepared with the right equipment. Next up on our DIY disaster tour, a leaky faucet that seemed to think it was Niagara Falls. My weapon of choice? A fistful of rubber bands, because clearly, the solution to all of life's problems is more rubber bands. I'm not sure what kind of water-bending powers I was hoping to unleash with those rubber bands. Maybe I envisioned them forming an impenetrable dam, stopping the drip before it could turn into a deluge. Instead, they just sort of clung desperately to the faucet, to my fingers, to each other. The water, meanwhile, continued its relentless assault. By the time I surrendered, defeated and soaking wet, the bathroom looked like a water park had exploded. The rubber bands? They remained, a tangled monument to my hubris. Ah, the clogged sink. A classic tale of woe, usually involving hair, food remnants, and the inescapable passage of time. My solution? A sock. Why a sock, you ask? Honestly, I don't remember, but in my defense, it seemed like a good idea at the time. Let's just say that using a sock as a plumbing snake is about as effective as using a spatula to play the violin. It went down the drain with a satisfying plop, but that's about as much success as I had. Retrieving the soggy, now significantly dirtier sock was an adventure in itself. The lesson here? Some things are best left to the professionals, or at least to someone who owns an actual plunger. Section 5. Toothpick tenacity. A cabinet handle's brief hope. Have you ever looked at a toothpick and thought, this could be the answer to all my problems? Well, I have. It's amazing how such a small, seemingly insignificant object can inspire a moment of hope and creativity. Specifically, when I was faced with a loose cabinet handle that seemed determined to detach itself from its rightful place. It was a minor annoyance, but one that demanded a clever solution. The plan was simple, elegant even. A quick fix that would save me a trip to the hardware store. Wedge a few toothpicks into the screw hole, creating a makeshift anchor for the screw. What could go wrong? It seemed foolproof. Everything, as it turns out. The toothpicks, though valiant, were not up to the task. The toothpicks, bless their little wooden souls, were valiant in their effort. They tried their best to hold the screw in place. They held firm for a glorious 5 seconds. It was a brief moment of triumph. Then, with a sad little crackle, they surrendered to the pressure. The dream was over. The cabinet handle remained defiantly loose, while I was left with a handful of toothpick splinters and a renewed appreciation for the structural integrity of actual screws. Sometimes the simplest solutions are not always the best. Section 6. Taping my troubles away. A picture frame's sticky situation. Our final DIY disaster involves a picture frame that had clearly seen better days. It was a cherished piece, holding memories that were now at risk of shattering along with the frame. The corners were coming apart, threatening to send the picture crashing to the floor. My solution? Tape. Lots and lots of tape. I thought if I just used enough, it would hold everything together. Now, I'm not talking about some high-tech industrial-strength adhesive here. No, this was your basic, run-of-the-mill transparent tape, the kind that's better suited for wrapping gifts than for holding together the fragile remnants of a picture frame. It was all I had on hand. You can probably guess how this went. Spoiler alert, not well. The tape, true to its nature, did its best to stick. It clung to my fingers more than the frame. It just didn't stick to the frame very well. The frame seemed to reject the tape's efforts. Every time I thought I'd managed to secure a corner, another section would come unstuck. It was a never-ending cycle. It was like playing a losing game of whack-a-mole, only with tape and a picture frame that was one wrong move away from disaster. In the end, I had to admit defeat and look for a more permanent solution. Section 7. Embrace the chaos, DIY disasters, and the joy of trying. So, what have we learned from these tales of DIY woe? That a spoon is not a chisel, a sock is not a plunger, and tape, no matter how much you use, cannot defy the laws of physics. But perhaps that's not really the point, is it? The point is that sometimes it's okay to laugh at our own attempts to be handy, to embrace the chaos, the mess, the inevitable failures that come with trying to fix things ourselves. We may not all be master craftspeople, but we can at least be masters of our own amusement. And that, my friends, is a victory in itself. Section 8. Share your stories, because misery loves laughably bad company. Now, I know I'm not the only one out there who's attempted a home repair with more enthusiasm than skill. I want to hear your stories. Tell me about your most epic DIY disasters, your proudest moments of almost fixing it, your most creative uses of household objects as tools. Let's revel in the shared experience of being hilariously, wonderfully bad at home repair.